Okay. All right, so hopefully this works okay. Okay, so for the recording, this is a demo on getting your model into a drawing, and then what are some of the things you do, what you shouldn't do in a drawing, how to get the views and all that good stuff. Even just how to get your model into a drawing the correct way. So the easiest way is for you to have your model up and on basically in Solidworks. So here's the model, and I'm going to go up to File and select Make Drawing from Part. So when I click on that, let's see, if model is open the same file as the model. Do you want to open the file and say yes? Okay, yeah, I think I was already working on one. So this is the correct, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a save all. And what I'm going to do is a save as well here. I'm just going to give it a different name. So I'm going to call this for drawing. Okay, so I'm just going to save copy as open. Okay, so now it's a new file name. So now the previous drawing will not get referred to this when I say make new drawing from part. So I'm going to say make new drawing from part. Okay, so this is where you can select the first thing. You select the paper size. 8.5 by 11. If you're going to make a PDF, it's going to be shared. If you want people just to print it out. Usually, 11 by 17, it'll give you enough room. Especially on something like a mouse. You want to work in full scale. It's big enough that you can work within the drawing in full scale. So, and then 11 by 17 kind of affords that good size there. So B size, landscape, you can see that it says width 17 and height 11 here. So when you do run through these, it will give you the dimension in the preview here. So I'm going to select B size and click OK. All right, so first thing it does, it just gives you a clean sheet of paper. Before I start dragging these views in, and by that I mean you should see on the right most of the views along with some of these isometric and diametric and trimetric and all that stuff along here. So but before that, I just want to make sure that you know how to edit the title here. See how this title is just way too big for the frame that it's in. And what I do is I go to change that, what you have to do is you have to go in and say edit sheet format. So again, you right click, you click on edit sheet format. And now all of these elements, they're kind of like sketch elements. They're blue, you can move them, delete them. And what I'm after here is this section here. So I double click on this, and here you can change the text. You can actually write something else, but it just refers to the file name. By selecting it, I can go in and say, okay, I want this to be 11 point type, or maybe 10, so it's a little bit smaller, and then click OK here. And you can also drag and move it as well. So if you do want to change the text, so let's just say you just want to give it a clear just mouse model. And that's it. So maybe version, let's say version C. Oops, not returned. Just close out the window there. And that's much, much cleaner than having that huge title that goes all the way across, the size of the paper and the rev and all that. So now to get out of edit mode, you'll click on this top right little arrow here. So it's kind of like we're in sketch edit in a way, but this is the edit mode for the sheet of paper. So now it's much cleaner here. And you can do other things. Let's say, like in this case, like maybe, clients like this to be changed a lot. This is just one of those things you have to go back into edit sheet format. And here you can go in and, let's say, select a certain area and say, so, wherever that might be, this is, I think that's how you spell it, Logitech, right? So, if you do want to change that text, so you do also have to be in edit mode for that. So I'm going to get out of edit mode. So these are the only things that I'll ask you to do. So just add some kind of a, just a modification to the text here, because it's always just too big for this area. And then just change some text here in the proprietary and confidentiality area here. Just change some of that text. And just when you get back out of it, then it's not clickable anymore. Let's see, if you do need to change your sheet size, you can edit the sheet format. Let's see this. I think you have to get into you have to get in properties for that one, not the edit sheet format, because that's all the stuff that's in here. You go into sheet properties, and then you would change it here. Won't change anything at the moment. One of the things that often comes up is the scale. That's something that is just, even if you have like different sheets, whether it's one sheet, you should see the scale down here. That's always visible. So it's 1:1 now. But if you ever need it to become, bigger, smaller, whatever it might be, you also go into properties, and here you can set the scale. So if you need to be half scale, 1:2. If you want it to be double, it's 2:1, and so forward, and so on and so forth. So let's see, I'll hit cancel for now. I'll just leave it at 1. Okay. All right. So here, let's start bringing in some views. So usually your open files will show up at the very top of the palette here. There's a little drop down, you'll notice. So here's the model, and then this is I believe this is the drawing here. So occasionally, all the views show up here, but occasionally, if you see this as blank, you will have to, select the file name, if you have it, if you have it on here, which is this one. Oh yeah, both of these models are up. So the one I want is Karl Mouse model for drawing. So if I look over here, Karl Mouse model for drawing shows up in the dropdown, and you can click on the refresh. And when you click on the refresh, then all the views will populate here over on the right. All right, so this is where you can start just dragging them over. Okay, and so when you drag this, and usually I start off with, like a front view or a right view, something that's kind of logical with the object that you're making. So I'll just click on this front view. And then automatically what's going to happen is it's just going to continue with the next view, with the next like aligned view. So if you just drag out to, not even drag out, I'm just hovering over, see how it's projecting kind of this rear view here, which is actually the right view. You can just click and it'll just stay there. Now if I hover over to the left, it's going to give me this front view here. And then if I hover over to the above it, it's going to give me the top view. So that's how you can just quickly just insert multiple views into your drawing. So when you're done, if you don't want to do any more, kind of any more views, I click OK. And here are my views. So the first thing I see is that there's a lot of noise here. There's a lot of all my sketches are showing, which I don't want. So to get rid of that, because really, I mean, for a drawing, you kind of just want the least amount of information that's going to describe your model, right? So what I'm going to do is hide that stuff. So I'm going to go up to View and Hide Show, and I'm going to hide the sketches. So once I hide the sketches, that's much cleaner. There's no sketches, and it's all all much cleaner now. So, and notice that everything's aligned too. Like when I move this first view that I dropped in, see how you see this, these connecting lines? That means that these other views are aligned to this one. If you ever want to break that alignment, let's say you want to put this rear view maybe down here for some reason, you can break that alignment. So if you go under alignment, you right click this rectangle that's encircling your view, you can right click that and say break alignment. So when you break the alignment, then you can just move it somewhere else. Sometimes, you may want to make a note on that might be a reason why you might want to break the alignment. You could maybe want to call out a detail or something, or put it on another page. But let's say in this case, you want to make just this view half scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say custom scale. So because this is selected, I see this over here on the left. And if I go to scale and I put 1 to 2, now this view goes to half scale. And maybe you want to make a note here or something later on. So, and actually this view is not necessary. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to delete that view. But that's a way to break the alignment and then move it out of the way. So here I have my 3 basic views, and let's say I forgot one view here. So let's say this isometric view here. And usually this one, I bring it a little smaller too. So this is one of the ones that I say, I select it. So all the drawing properties comes up over here on the left. I say use custom scale, and I go half scale on that. I've seen a lot of people also, what they like to do with this isometric is to make just this particular one shaded, whereas you almost never make the other, the regular views over here, the 3 views. Shading is one of those things that really not necessary on a drawing, an orthographic drawing. Usually these get printed out, easy to copy, easy to Xerox and all that, but sometimes you may want to show a little bit more of a descriptor here. So this one may get some shading, something like that. So it's possible. I try to keep away from that personally. I like just to keep an orthographic, just line work. All right, so here are my 3 basic views and an isometric. Going to show the, kind of the entire thing here. All right, so it's showing coordinates, out here. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it's usually, that's kind of like on the discussion area, like someone's, if you're on the phone with someone and they're looking at the drawing, so they're looking at page 1 and they're saying, okay, in coordinate, B3, there's this mouse wheel that we want to change to something else. So, it's kind of an easy way to refer to a drawing in the manner of coordinates. That's why these letters and numbers are on the perimeter of this drawing. Okay, so the next step is getting dimensions. How do you get dimensions on here? And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Sometimes just because we're kind of working with these very organic models, there may not be a just a handy edge or linear element to place a dimension. And by that I mean, let's say I just want to get the length across this. Let's say just what someone might ask me, okay, what's the length of the model? So I'm going to go to annotation, and annotations means just anything that you supplement your drawing with, dimensions, notes, all that stuff. So I'm going to go to smart dimension, so similar to a sketch, and also similar to a sketch, you click on entities for that to to work. So I'm going to click on those 2 endpoints and then drag out the dimension. So very similar to a drawing, or to a sketch, I should say. Maybe you want to call this area out and say, okay, what is the tangency of, or what's the, the scroll wheel surface area here? So, or length of this area. Click on that. Zoom in here. So these were easy enough because there were endpoints here. This line has an endpoint. This back line here has an endpoint. So it's easy to select that. Now, if I were to get, let's say I want the width here, and I go back to Smart Dimension, and notice that there's no easy way to just select and, you can't just click on the end here. The next closest point is, let's see, there's not even a next closest point here. There just aren't any. Everything's kind of just continues, the curves continue. Because what this dimension tool is looking for is like an endpoint or a straight line or an arc or something like that. And there aren't none here at the, there aren't any at this mouse. So what I'm gonna have to do is insert my own elements, my own sketch elements, so that I can get a dimension, so I can pull a dimension off of this. So the way I do that is I go to the Sketch tab here, and it looks exactly like your regular sketch in your part drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, good thing here is you don't have to select a plane. Your drawing board is essentially your plane, right? So you don't have to select a plane first and then go into sketch. So you can just go straight to centerline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on this endpoint here, drag out a centerline, and I'm going to look at that. So what I'm going to do is, so it's already horizontal. You see the horizontal relation, and it is stuck to this line. You can see that it's on this line. But what I want to add is tangency, because I want this line to be right up against tangent to this curve. So if I select both of those entities and click tangent, now I know that this is right up against the very end of this, curve. So that would be the right way to do that, because it goes all the way to the top, because not only is it horizontal, but it's also tangent to that curve. So it just naturally goes all the way to the, like the very top of it. And I'll make another one at the bottom. So center line, also horizontal. I'll get out of it. I'll select both of those elements. Make them tangent. So now I have a tangent line, top and bottom. So now I can pull a dimension off of these horizontal center lines. And I know my dimension now is 2.52. All right, so that's how you would get a dimension off of something that, a curved element, which is important, because I think most of you have some kind of element like that. And at this point, I'm just pulling basic dimensions. I don't want to get too detailed with with the dimensions. This is not going to be something that's going to be completely, like an engineering drawing or anything like that. This may be just for maybe you're sending this out for output, and they want some basic dimensions to make sure if it's on their on the bed that's going to create this, or trying to get a sense of volume, or if it's going to a tooling place, they get a sense of how big a piece of steel they have to buy to create this, because they have a minimum wall thickness to the steel for the for not to warp and all that. So it could be sent out for quoting purposes for whatever reason. Another dimension might be the height. So that'd be another typical one is, let's see how high this mouse is. And again, there is no point up at the top. It's just a curve, right? There's no arc at all. So I'm going to again go into my sketch tool, make horizontal, make sure that it's horizontal. Zoom in a little closer. I'll select the top of that and that. Make a, oops, let's see, I think I didn't select it. I'm gonna select both of them, make them tangent. And I'll get this a little closer to the origin. Go to Smart Dimension, go from there to there. And there I have my height. Okay. All right, so, I'm not sure what this is over here. I think someone's annotating on my screen here. All right. Okay, so any questions so far? So we brought in the model, we brought in views. The views are aligned. We brought in a isometric view. If you do want to bring in other views, you just,
oh,
okay, go ahead.
Hello? Oh, the bottom right, what about all those empty spaces? Should we just delete them?
On all these?
Yeah.
Usually this is an area where, people can write notes. Whether
You just leave them there, even.
I'd leave them there, yeah. I leave them there. I mean, this is up to you too. I mean, part of what you'll be doing too might be creating your own title block, because this is what this is. This is a kind of a standard title block. What happens here usually, it's people that that look at this drawing and maybe they approve the drawing, and they'll put a date here and then they'll sign off. So these are just spaces for that. You can put the date, who's engineered, checked, all these kind of things here, any comments. It is kind of a standard, it's kind of a large title block, so you may not want all of this included. Maybe I'll show a couple of examples of kind of pared down title blocks that doesn't show all this information. Looks a little bit more customized. But if you do want to change it, you can always go into edit the sheet format. And it's just very similar to a sketch. You can trim this out. You can use the trim tool to, trim that out, and very, very similar to that. So if you do want to get rid of some of those items, you can, so to kind of clear out space, right? You may want to clear out some space for, for your other stuff there. But if you do want to delete them, you can go in and just go into edit sheet format and start deleting some of those. And just be careful with it. Let's see, I think in another, or maybe I'll link to something that'll get to the editing of these title blocks in a little more detail, because you can really, just go off and just create your own title block, something that's a kind of, more unique to you and to the information that you want to show. Maybe you want something that's a little more vertical. I've seen architects, they have a little bit more of title blocks that are more along the side here, and that's because of the way they usually roll up their drawings, and you can quickly, without rolling out the entire thing, kind of see a quick summary of what's in that sheet over on the side here. So different applications have different title blocks. But I agree, yeah, this is a kind of a detailed engineering type of title block. But yeah, so I'll show some examples of different ones. Any other questions right off the bat here? Okay, so if you wanted to add let's see, another view. Let's add another sheet. So typically, this title one, the first sheet might just be very, very basic, just showing some, your three views, showing your just overall dimensions. And but then on the second sheet, it might get a little more detailed. You might want to maybe get into sections, sections, and maybe a bill of materials, BOM.
Is
So
this, what is the standard views for the first page? Is it just 3 or is it 5, like we've known through Art Center?
usually, well, let's see, if it's redundant, usually I look at it as, you know, why am I showing these views? You know, how much information is going to be shown through it, and if I'm repeating too much, you know, I don't want to overload the person that's looking at them. You know, like it doesn't have to be, you know, 5 views if, you know, the left and the right are identical and it's just going to show the same thing. You know, I don't necessarily want that. That's just unless it's an asymmetric part, you know, if it's a button on the left that's not being shown on the right, then I would show both sides. So in this case, these are identical on both sides. So I wouldn't necessarily show the other side of this. You know, it's
Okay,
just the same thing. So yeah, for me, it's always been, you know, just showing just the clearest amount of information on there without overloading or confusing the viewer, you know, because they're not, you know, they're a lot of times it's the first time they see this, and they're going to be looking at this, and if they see, okay, you know, there's a left and a right view, so they must be different, so then they start looking for differences, and if there are none, you might get a phone call like, okay, well, why are you showing the, you know, the right view? Are there any differences? So, you know, things like that. So it's not necessarily, you know, you have to show 3 views or you have to show 5 views. It's always, you know, sometimes there's no top view. Like if it's a cylindrical item, you might just show the width as a circumference or something, and, you know, there might not be, it might just be top view and a front view. And if it's cylindrical, you won't show a right view. You know, it's
okay,
just,
great.
that's, you know, it might just be 2 views. So
Okay, thank
so
you.
yeah, hopefully that answers your question. All right, so what I'm going to do now is add a second sheet. So if you look at the very bottom left here, there's looks like a little page with an asterisk on it. So I'm going to click on that, and it adds a sheet 2. And notice that it does have this, you know, this the same issue here where we had this time. So what it did was it got that template and it just made a new sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to delete the sheet that I just made. I just click on that. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, whoops, where is that one again? Yeah, not add, I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to say copy. Oops, let's see. So you do have, when you do copy the sheet, you do have to paste it. So say after. So I'm going to say after selected sheet, and we only have one sheet. So, you know, it could be either one of these two. So after selected sheet. So I go to sheet 2. So sheet 2 now has the same, you know, changes that I created here, the same size, you know, file name here. And then here I can, let's say just delete this. Let's say I'm going to delete this view. And because maybe on this view, what I want to show is just a couple of sections through this piece here. So I'm going to move this up here. And now I'm going to get into a little bit more kind of advanced stuff. You know, it's the section view. You know, it's a very typical thing to do is I want to just create a slice at a, you know, some kind of predetermined area. Maybe it's the wheel area here to show how this interfaces against the rest of the model. So I'm going to go to view layout and say section view. So these are one of the auxiliary view type things. So what I want is a vertical cut. So it's like getting a knife and cutting right through this, you know, this portion right at the wheel here. So when I'm done, I say okay. And now it's a matter of just bringing it out and aligned. It's an aligned view. So notice that, you know, this is the slice looking at it in this direction. So if I cut, you know, with a knife, if I cut through this, it's telling me, okay, now you're looking towards the front, and this is the view that we're getting here. So it's, you can see the wheel here and these axles to the wheel. That's what these are. That's why it looks like a little cross here. There's not a whole lot of detail on the inside. You know, there's no wall thicknesses yet or anything like that. But what these are showing, these 45-degree lines, it's showing where there's mass. You know, it's showing where there's mass here on the. So it's just a kind of a solid piece. So that's why it's looking like that. So I'm going to create another section. So I'm going to go up here, section view. So I'm going to create another vertical section, maybe towards the back here, and just to show maybe the height of it. Maybe there's maybe you want to do like an ergonomic study or something of what this section looks like. And so I'm going to say okay, and I don't want it to break into this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over slightly and maybe stack these two. So if you remember from the previous views, so we can break the alignment. Remember, this is stuck because this is aligned with the first view that we brought in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to alignment and say break alignment. And now I can just,
I do unfortunately have to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I'll have this recorded.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one. And so so here we are. So now this is a, you know, I've broken the alignment, and it's you know, it's I brought it just kind of below and just stack these two. Okay, so I'm going to do one more section view, and this is going to be horizontal. So maybe I just want to do a slice across the kind of the middle of this area here. And actually, I want to look down on it. I don't want to look up into this slice. I want to look down into the slice. So what I can do is, let's see, where's this is still selected. This section view here is selected. So that's why I have all these options. And I'm just going to flip the direction. So you can see the arrows went from, and I'll do that again. So you can flip it. Right now it's looking up into that slice. And now it's looking down onto this slice. That's why now we can see a little bit more of this, you know, this area out in here. So wherever I'm cutting through, I can see this these 45-degree lines. And where I don't see those 45-degree lines, that's just you know, what hasn't been cut. And here's the slot area for this for the wheel. All right, so, and let's say I want to create maybe part of the title for this one. I'm going to go to annotations, and I'm just going to put a note. So I'm going to go to the note area, click here, and just put you know, section views, and that's it. So click OK. Oops, yeah. If you remain on the note, what'll happen is it'll just keep, whatever you typed in, it'll just keep going with that unless you edit it. So, you know, that's the title for this. So for this page. So this is page 2 of 2. And now this one's showing the sections through this. Okay. So the next one is, let's say, so this is to help you, the vendor, to see through your model and see what's going on the inside. You know, maybe they're figuring out how they're going to build it, whatever it might be, right? So this is a helpful sheet in that sense. So you kind of want to group your items together like this. The next one that I want to do, I'm going to go back to this one. I'm going to copy this one again. So I'm going to say copy. And I'm going to go paste, and I'll paste it after this sheet, or just move to the end, whatever you want to do. So now this is sheet 3. And if I look here, it's sheet 3 of 3. You always want to look at this because you don't want to be editing sheet 1, right? Even though, because right now they look identical. So let's say on this sheet, what I want to do, I'm looking to, actually what I'm going to do, I want to just remove these 3 views. Let's say this is the paint scheme or something along those lines. I'm going to say delete, yes to all, and I'm going to bring this one over and make this one, I'll go back. So remember when you select this view, you get all the properties here. I'm just going to use the sheet scale. And with this one, what I want to do is I want to make some call outs possibly. So I'm going to go to Note. So I'm going to go to Annotations, the tab, Annotations tab. Click on Note. And if you click on something, if you just leave it kind of out like this, you know, it'll just make a note by itself. In this case, I'll make, let's say, paint call out. Oops. Paint call out. Hit the X. But now, if you now click on something, it's going to put an arrow on it. So this one's called, let's say, that's the yellow, and you can also change the format of the arrow. Doesn't have to be an arrow, you know, it could be, you can delete the arrow. So, you know, if that's in the leaders tab here on the right, it could be a zigzag arrow. It could be, you can also select, you know, maybe you want it to end in a kind of a dot. I think you can go in and change the, you know, the circularity of that or different items. So just depending on how you want to, you know, create that. How do you want that ending of that? And let's see, so another note here. And then that one is, okay. Oops. Let's hit the return. Hit escape to get out of that. So what you're doing is you're specifying these different areas to be different colors. So, you know, if you want to select this one, go back to Note, and say, okay, maybe this area. You know, maybe you want to just do all of the yellows at the same time, possibly. When you just keep clicking, you'll just keep going with it. Maybe this back area. As long as you keep track of these areas. And this could be reinforced also with the rendering, but this might be the official, you know, call out for this, you know, for these. Hit Shift, copy, and let's see, this area maybe in here. That'll be the last call out there. Okay. So this will be your paint call out shape, you know. So let's see. I think if you move the view, sometimes they follow, sometimes they don't. Yeah, I think it is following. There's a little extra one here down here. Get rid of that one. So this may be your paint call out, you know, sheet. All right. So some good stuff to show, you know. The good thing is that you can just print this out, you know, save this as a PDF. And it's a really good technical document for someone to, you know, let's say your model maker, someone's going to get this. And let's see. So on the output side, we'll note about that. Well, let me add one more thing before we finish off here. I do want to add some kind of bill of materials. That's important. You know, it's the BOM. You know, they're always talking about the BOM. You know, they want to, you know, usually procurement or usually the people that are paying for these. You know, it's they want to learn how many parts there are, quantities, any kind of notes in that sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go insert tables and where it says bill of materials. So let's see, select a drawing. Let's see, well, I think I have to do it off of, I think it has to be off of one of these here. Okay, so you do have to select a drawing for this to happen. So it's just basically, it looks like a, you know, like an Excel spreadsheet kind of thing. Not a whole lot of items yet. You know, you can populate this with more or less, you know, at this point, you know, a lot of companies, you know, they'll have you populate this, you know, the part number, because every piece will have its own part number, you know, like if these are shells and they all have their own mold, each one will have to have its own part number. What else? Maybe a small description and then the quantity of each of one of those parts. And so that way they'll know exactly how much they'll have to pay for in this sense. All right, but this is just a simple, you know, simple BOM in this case. And I can get into like a different maybe explanation for this because this has its own, you know, set of details and adding and deleting. You know, it works very much like a, you know, like a spreadsheet. Okay, and then the last thing is the output of this. So I'm going to go to, first of all, save. I'm going to save this, and I'll just call this same file number. So what I'm doing is I'm saving the drawing file. Remember, there was beginning of the class said there were 3 different file types in SolidWorks. There's the part file, an assembly file, and then this is the third one, which is the drawing file. So this is its own file type. And so, you know, you can elect to just print from this file directly to your printer. Usually what I do is I bring it into Illustrator first and kind of give it its own, you know, if it's something that's going to be like the finished thing, you know, you can move things around. To do that, I would go in and say save as. And I'll go to save as, and instead of a drawing, I'll save it as a PDF. So PDF, and it gets saved out. All 3 sheets get saved out. It's getting saved out. And there it is as a PDF. Most of you also have, I think, the Creative Cloud, so you're not most likely on just a regular reader, or maybe I do have to log in here. Click on that. Let me see if I can edit this really quick. So, because what's going to happen is you're going to get this at the very bottom left here. SolidWorks educational product for instructional use only. So you will have to edit the PDF, and I think, yeah. So on this computer, I don't have the updated DC version of this, but you know, you can either do that in Illustrator. You know, I'll probably do this on the Mac side. You know, you can just get rid of this area here. So I may have just like a separate video on just how to embellish these, because you can get even more, you know, stuff for like manuals. Like you may get asked to output these like isometric drawings for the manual. You know, that just happens. You know, at Jacuzzi we did that all the time. You know, so you'll get asked from a lot of different departments, a bunch of stuff. So from engineering, from marketing, you know, you'll get asked for renderings. From the documentation department, you know, you'll get asked for these types of drawings. You know, they just need them for the manuals. Sometimes they may need exploded views. So you will get into that on a separate video as well, like how to do exploded views out of this. And so you can show also alternate views. So, you know, like a lid showing it closed, and then also showing in its alternate position, showing it open. So that's another thing as well. Yeah, things like this, like I would get rid of in Illustrator. Like this line down the middle here, like this line does not really exist in the model. It's not a material separator. It's not a paint separator. It's not there's no part line there. So in Illustrator, I would go in and just take this out. And this is just because in SolidWorks, there's two different faces here, and it just put a kind of a separator. So that's one of the ways I would clean it up in Illustrator. Another thing may be to just set this as a thicker line. Usually the outline usually has like a double width line here. So that's just kind of a technique kind of thing. You can elect to do that or not. Sometimes you just get these weird little artifacts line. They're not. There's nothing that's really supposed to be there. It's probably just like a surface that kind of rolled around, and it just kind of created or caused a line at that just at that point there. But I would get rid of that as in Illustrator as well. But even just this is you're off to a good start as far as showing a lot of good information for your for your vendor, for your output house, just for yourself too. Just seeing how your model's going to come together. How it's going to get painted, and how the parts are going to, set up and become kind of a whole, as far as maybe assembly or ergonomics or something. So you get a lot of good data from these. Any questions before I close this this video out? So yeah, this is one of those things that we don't get necessarily fancy with drawings. You just want it to just be just as clear as possible with these drawings, not show a lot of double information. Like I wouldn't put the height here as well. Not necessarily double up on dimensions. Just be as clear as possible with these. And I'll stop the recording at this moment here.